Hi everyone, I'm Heath, and in this video we're going to be talking about why is Encumbrance even a thing in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons anymore based on the way this game is going, and should it be something that should just be jettisoned from the 5th edition of the game based on where we are with the game, but then also in a larger sense, is Encumbrance something we should be worried about anyway? Now personally, I think that it is something we should be concerned about. I think that Encumbrance could be an important part of the game for this reason in the round. Characters are not always going to have everything that they would like to have with them at any given time. There needs to be some kind of system that limits the kind of gear, equipment, whatever the character has, so that the characters and the players playing them must make meaningful choices about what kind of equipment and gear they're going to be taking along with them for an adventure, so there is the possibility that they will be able to make better choices and therefore make their adventure easier, or make poor choices and therefore make their adventure harder or maybe even impossible to complete. So, to me, that's kind of what Encumbrance is supposed to be doing. It's providing some kind of constraint on the resources that all of the characters are able to bring with them on any particular adventure. So, in that sense, I believe that Encumbrance is an important part of RPGs. So let's take a look at the implementation of Encumbrance here in 5th edition. Because I have certainly played games where you are supposed to be tracking the amount of water you've got, the rations you've got, the weight of everything that you're carrying down to the last arrow that you've got, or your bits of gold, silver, and even copper coins, and then you total up all of that weight and then compare it to something, and that's going to tell you something about your movement penalties or your combat penalties or whatever other things are going to happen to you because of Encumbrance. And I can understand why that is too much for some gaming groups. Do you really want to have to keep track of everything that's in your pocket and, recalibrate every time you pay a bartender for some ale or something like that and constantly be tracking how much weight is in your backpack? Of course, some people do, but I understand that a lot of people don't. And especially if the input, I'm always talking about input versus output, where output is the amount of fun you're getting out. If I'm putting a lot of time into tracking how many coins I've got and everything else, regarding how much I'm supposed to be carrying, I need to be getting some fun out of that, right? And in many cases, I think that players are right that I'm not getting the fun out of that, and so many gaming groups will decide to basically dispense with it. To me, that means that probably the coin-by-coin tracking of weight isn't something we should be doing. Now, of course, some people, like I've been using D&D Beyond for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. That does automate the process of, tracking everything that you're carrying, so I guess that's sometimes better, but I don't think we should necessarily be assuming that you are using an electronic system to keep track of all of that for you. I think the system should be something that you're able to keep track of by pen and paper or cards or whatever at the table physically if you're not using computer-aided game aids. So let's take a look at the implementation of Encumbrance here in the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm here in the SRD. It says, carrying capacity. Your carrying capacity is your strength score multiplied by 15. This is the weight in pounds that you can carry, which is high enough that most characters don't have to worry about it. What? This is one of those situations where I do think 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons lets us down. Because in this case, we're basically putting all of the onerous calculation of ounces and pounds and everything else your character is carrying onto the player, expecting that they are going to be keeping track of all of that, which is the not fun part, only to tell them in the end that, hey, by the way, this is such a generous limit anyway that most characters aren't going to have to worry about it anyway. So basically, you're telling everyone, spend a lot of time making sure that you are tracking every ounce that your character is carrying, but by the way, once you're done doing that, you shouldn't have to worry about the result anyway. Why would you do that? That's the worst of both worlds. If I'm going to be tracking every coin and every arrow that I'm carrying and its weight, then I want to be sure that's meaningful after I've done all of that. And here, basically, Dungeons & Dragons is telling me, yes, do all of that, but no, it's not going to be meaningful. And that's why I'm asking, should we just jettison this in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons? Because why even go through that? If you're just straight up telling me that the limit that you can carry is high enough that your characters won't have to worry about it in most circumstances anyway, then don't make people add it all up, right? And then just have something else that says, at times, if it seems appropriate to the game master can impose some type of penalty if they're trying to carry around, Smog's hoard on their back or something like that. So I don't even understand why you would do this. It's opposite from my game design philosophy. I want there to be an encumbrance system because I want to impose important choices on the players and for those choices to be meaningful. And this doesn't do any of those things. Now, there is this variant right here, but basically this variant is kind of equally as bad. The rules for lifting and carrying are intentionally simple. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of simple after you've made everybody add up all of their weights, only to say, yeah, and it probably doesn't matter anyway, but I suppose that's simple. Here's the variant if you are looking for more detailed rules for determining how a character is hindered by the weight of equipment. When you use this variant, ignore the strength column of the armor table. If you carry weight in excess of 5 times your strength score, you are encumbered, which means your speed drops by 10 feet. If you carry weight in excess of 10 times your strength score, up to your maximum carrying capacity, you are instead heavily encumbered, which means your speed drops by 20 feet and you have disadvantage on ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws that use strength, dexterity, or constitution. Okay, so what do we think about that? Well, I actually think that the angry GM provides some very important information and insight into this situation. And so this is his article on encumbrance, rations, and other crap you hate tracking. And of course, as is his style, it's rather verbose. But I've highlighted a few items here which I think are some of the core information that is within this article that we should take a look at. He and I seem to agree that encumbrance is a potentially important part of the game because it should be making the players make choices. And he says here, all of these things, encumbrance, rations, light sources, mounts, these all put obstacles in the way of low-level parties. And so he's talking about low level in the context of D&D. And he just said obstacles that would gradually fall away as the party became better adventurers and had access to more resources. Because, yeah, you want, as the game master, to be able to challenge the party. And I want some kinds of things that we might consider mundane challenges to be things that could potentially challenge the party. Like having enough stuff to eat. Like having a light source to be able to see. Like having to carry too much stuff, potentially. Those are obstacles that can challenge the party. But those just go away if encumbrance isn't even considered at all. So he says down here, see, choices, meaningful choices, are born of two things, risk and conflict. The risk and conflict arise because someone can't have everything they want. They have to choose between the things they want, or they have to risk something valuable in order to get what they want. That's what makes the game exciting. And so I think this right here is also very important. The point is restrictions and limitations drive meaningful choices, and I completely agree with that. They drive risks and conflicts, and they provide a sense of growth and progression. If you take away the restrictions and limitations, you've got nothing to grow beyond. You just have a treadmill of shallow advancement made of bigger numbers and showy special effects. And in this case, he does talk about some examples for things like World of Warcraft, when, leveling up to get a mount is a big deal because you can now traverse continents much faster, and then leveling up again and getting a flying mount is a big deal because you can then fly all the way across continents very fast. And I do remember that. I played a little bit of World of Warcraft, and he's talking about, in that case, distance being an obstacle to your character that as you level up you are alleviating. He says, but that's not the case with D&D anyway, is it? D&D, the current version, which is 5th edition, does have an encumbrance system. I mean, the penalties are extremely minor and it's highly permissive, but it's there. It just doesn't really accomplish anything, which is the point I was trying to make. I mean, the PHB even says that the basic encumbrance limit is high enough that most characters will never have to worry about it. The more complex variant system does lower the basic somewhat, but the penalty for what might be considered the normal range for a heavily laden character is a speed reduction of 10 feet. Now, here's the funny thing about that speed reduction. It's a silly, useless restriction, because any smart character is going to drop their backpack as a free action as soon as the fight breaks out. And tactical speed, speed in combat rounds, has no effect on the speed of overland travel in the basic rules. None. And that's just crazy. So, again, I ask, why is encumbrance even in 5th edition? Why are they even worrying about it? What are they trying to get out of including the encumbrance system? It doesn't seem like anything. It seems like the designers of the game were considering basically encumbrance only an input. You've got to put all of this work into figuring out encumbrance, and are you getting out fun out of it? No, you're not, so hey, let's just not worry about it. Because they didn't think about the kinds of things that encumbrance, being the choices the character has to make, could impose on the character or the playing group as a whole. So Angry says, what would my ideal system for all of this crap look like? Well, let me start by saying I agree the edge has to be taken off the bookkeeping. Bookkeeping isn't fun, it can get onerous. Adding up individual pounds of weight for everything you pick up and put down during play just isn't fun. And yes, I know a lot of people use technology to do the hard lifting of maintaining a character now, but lots of people also don't, and the game and your brain are better off if you can put your screen down for 10 minutes. So you have to design tracking systems that work for human beings, but that's only half the problem. Next, you have to build space into the game for these systems so the game doesn't undermine them. You need to build progressions into the game outside of combat that define what's possible at different tiers of play, which includes the amount of exploration they're going to be able to do or characters are going to be able to do at different levels. So this video has probably already gone on long enough, but I think there are other ways to handle encumbrance that are human being friendly, as in not requiring tallying up everything that you pick up or put down during a game, and that get across the point of the encumbrance system, which is making the players make significant choices. So I would like to take a look at different variant encumbrance systems which have been developed online and in other different systems in future videos. So if you have some different encumbrance systems we should look at, please put them down in the comments below. And also, please let me know what your thoughts are in general. Please put them down in the comments below as well. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and all of that jazz. It really helps a lot. But also, please check out The Cultists, the web series on this channel about modern-day D&D playing Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who just don't understand. Season 1 is on the channel now. But also, please check out my YouTube channel. I have over 150 videos on tabletop games and the fantasy genre. If you've enjoyed this video, you might enjoy many of them as well. I look forward to seeing you for them and many more videos to come. Later.